Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Donna.
Okay. Oh, everybody's coming in.
Yeah.
Turn off your video, Sandy.
I will.
That's my mom.
Hello.
Hi. We're just getting ready to start here in a minute. People are joining.
Ah, okay. I'm going to mute.
Okay.
Donna, would you accept that co-host?
I'm sorry?
Accept co-host?
Accept co-host.
It should be on your screen now. Do you see that?
I don't see it. Where would it be?
It may just, see if you can pull up your PowerPoint and let's see.
Okay.
Is it allowing you to screen share?
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, sure can.
All right.
You got this.
Okay. Are you gonna let Dr. Christian?
I did.
Okay.
Oh, that is a nice
that.
classroom. Very comfortable seats. Very eager student and the teacher.
I
Karen
promise it'll be
and,
entertaining
Donna.
or not boring, I should say.
Donna, I thought, okay, you were frozen for a while, so I wasn't sure whether it was a picture two-dimensional or you were really there.
Frozen.
She's just standing very, very still.
Right.
Get her started, Dr. Hirsch.
Yeah, no, it appeared that way. Maybe my computer is slow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right, Karen? Isn't it right?
Say it again.
I can't hear. Or I don't know. Donna looks very still. It's my computer or her computer. I
She
don't
looks
know.
fine to me.
Maybe it's the green screen. The screen behind me.
Maybe my computer is slow. Yeah, okay. All right.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'll do.
Hello.
Okay.
Fair to
Thanks,
Midland.
Donna. Like your background, Donna.
Thank you. It's one of the ones they sent on campus announcements.
I saw that. Yeah, I took the Panther. I downloaded the Panther one that they have. Okay.
Well, it's on campus.
Yeah, intranet announcement came out with PV virtual backgrounds.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Came out last week.
Oh, okay. It looks nice, like we see in CNN.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever David Gergen appears behind him, Kennedy School of Government, Harvard. Same thing.
We've got about 3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim.
No.
Hello.
I assume you're admitting everyone, Ms. Cobb.
I am.
Okay. I see their names pop up, but I.
Hi, Donna.
Hi,
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Lisa Bida from the College of Nursing.
Of course. Excellent.
Harshika Fernando from Chemistry Department.
I'm gonna call you after this meeting. I have a question regarding the
Okay.
project. Yeah.
Sounds great. I'll email you my home number here in a minute.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gina Querela from Chemistry.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Gina.
Hi. Some of you I know just for emails. Now I see face. Especially you, Donna.
Okay, Donna, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Cotton. I'm the manager of marketing and communications for the Office of Research and Innovation, where we thrive to cultivate, translate, and impact lives. We encourage you to reach out to us at any time at research@pvamu.edu to support your research project. Today, I'm very excited because we are presenting class project to IRB or not to IRB. And many of us have that question when we're doing a class project. Is it something that we need to connect with the research compliance people about it, or it's just a simple survey? When do I know if it's something that needs to be addressed through IRB? Well, we've got the answers for you today. So let me just do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I want everyone to know that we are recording today. So this session will be recorded and it will be available on our website at a later date. I'm encouraging everyone to please place your microphone on mute. And if you have any questions during the presentation, just write them in the chat, just type them in the chat box, and we'll address those questions at the end of the session. Throughout the presentation, if the presenter were to ask you a question, then just type your answer in the chat. So we have a lot of information to cover today, and we only have 1 hour to do it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker, Donna Paulkrobek, who is the Director of Research Compliance here at PVAMU. So Donna, please take it away.
Thank you, Karen. I am Donna Paulkrobek, as Ms. Cotton said. I'm your Director of Research Compliance, and I'm going to talk today about class projects and whether or not you need to get an IRB review or approval for doing class projects. So I'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to make it fairly quick and hopefully entertaining, so we'll have lots of time for questions. All right. So first off, I'm the director of the Office of Research Compliance, and our mission in simple terms is to keep you compliant and legal so you can keep doing your research. That's what we do. As you know, sponsored research comes with terms and conditions, and our impact is that we're facilitating 70% of that sponsored research that's coming through peer review. We also impact most of the graduate studies, dissertations and theses, or thesi, not sure if I'm saying that right, because all of those generally involve some form of research, so we do look at them. Okay, move on here. Okay, so what services do we offer? Does the Office of Research Compliance offer with respect to human subjects research? Well, first off, we manage all the documents you send for the IRB review. So for those of you who may not know, to get approval to do research with human beings, you need to fill out a form, a short form about 9 or 10 pages that tells us what you're going to do with human beings and what the gist of your research is. And we will bring in all of that information for you and prepare it for the human subjects research in IRB, which is the Institutional Research Board. Another thing we do is that we will help you if you need it by sitting with you and helping you write your IRB. And that's, we're more than happy to do that. I actually, Zoom is interesting because I can work with you on Zoom. We can bring the document up and I can help you understand what questions the IRB is asking. It's not always obvious the first time you look at it, but we're very happy to help you write your IRBs. Next, we train researchers on human subjects research, and we are happy to come and do custom trainings. If you have a class, I will come in on weekends and go to graduate classes or stay late at nights. We're willing to do that. We'll also come to your departments if you want training on a particular topic. So please feel free to ask for that. We would love to do it. We're happy to do it. Okay. So let's get into the class project. What is a class project? So I'm going to go ahead and read this slide because it's important. A class project is typically an in-course exercise conducted over the course of a single semester in which students are engaged in collecting information from or about human beings for the purpose of answering a research question. So that's a hypothesis. So this is you're taking a class and your instructor has asked you to gather information about people through various means, and you're going to answer a research question. This is part of your class assignment. Okay, that's what a class project is. So here's some examples of class projects I've seen before. You could be measuring other students in your class for things like their blood pressure, their body mass index, or even how many steps they take every day on a Fitbit. And those are all, that's information about human beings that you're collecting perhaps to do a class project. Another example would be maybe you're going to an educational institution like our Office of Institutional Research and you're getting the grade point averages of freshmen. For some reason, maybe you want to look at that, compare it by degree. You know, that can be done as a class project. Surveys, probably the most common are surveys. You survey people, ask them questions. Interviews, you might be interviewing people. Focus groups, that's also a possibility. You get everyone in a room and interview them together. And lastly, game playing. That's probably the rarest one I see, but it is possible to, you know, monitor people's, the way people react to playing games. That's observing information about human beings. So moving on, I want y'all to think about this question. Do class projects require IRB approval? You don't have to answer in the chat box, just think to yourself, okay? Is the correct answer yes? Is the correct answer no? Well, the correct answer is it depends. It completely depends. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So how could you know if your class project requires IRB approval? What's a good guide? What's a good thing to go by to figure out just on your own? Do I need to call the IRB? And the two things you need to think about are intent and risk. not either or, both. So you could have intent and no risk, or lots of risk and no intent. It's interesting. Let me explain as we move on. But these are the two things that the IRB is going to look at to consider, two things you can consider when you're thinking about your class project. So let's talk about intent first. And the first question I ask people generally when they call me about these things is, will the results only be discussed in class? And if the answer is yes, then you've probably got a class project, okay? If you're gonna take the results outside of class, it might be research. So we need to think about that. Next question you wanna ask yourself is, will you call the results, quote, educational, or will you call them research? And that's a big, important intent question. Because if you're going to call them educational, it's a class project. But if you're going to call the results research, you are now a research project. You can't collect information under the guise of it being educational and then call it research. It needs to be called what it is up front. And it's okay to do research in a class, but it needs to be treated differently than an educational class project. That's what the point I'm getting at. So the last question you want to ask yourself about intent is, do you intend to submit the results for publication? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably research. If the answer is no, you're probably educational. And I say probably because it's perfectly okay to publish the results of your class project as long as you call them educational and not research. Once you call it research, you know, whoever's publishing for you is going to ask for your IRB approval. So that's an important distinction that's good to understand. So I'll move on to intent, from intent to risks. So your intent could be completely educational, but you might have a high risk. And in this case, the IRB is going to want to look at it. So what do I mean by a high risk, or a risk, a potential risk? First thing is, we're going to look at what data you're collecting. So opinion surveys, well, they could or could not be risky. I'll give you an example. If I'm doing a class project and I'm asking my classmates, do they like Coke or Pepsi, Mr. Pibb or Dr. Pepper? It's not so risky. Most of us would agree. That's not very risky. But if I ask them if they prefer heroin to crack cocaine, now we're a little riskier. Now we're asking some risky questions. Or if we ask about sexual habits, or if we ask about, you know, have you ever been suicidal or been depressed? I mean, the content of the survey makes a huge difference. And you know, the risks, it does pose a risk in what you're asking, or it can pose a risk. So another type of data, personal health information. I mentioned a minute ago about Fitbit, BMI, you know, blood pressure measurements. Now, if you're getting that information directly from your classmates, that's actually okay, because they can tell you no if they don't want to do it. But if you're getting that information from a healthcare provider, and this is for College of Nursing in particular, we have this law that we have to consider, which is called Hipaa. And the Hipaa law is protecting the release of information from healthcare providers like insurance companies, clinics, hospitals, and they have laws they have to follow. So if you're going to deal with personal health information, you definitely want to call the IRB and ask about it before you do it. Another category is educational information. And that would be getting those grade point averages from the university. If you're getting information from an individual, you just go to your classmate and say, hey, you know, what is your grade point average? Well, they can tell you no, or they can lie, or, you know, they can give you whatever information they want. But if you go to the Office of Institutional Research here at Prairie View and you say, give me all the freshman GPAs, Now we have to make sure that you're abiding by a law called FERPA. That's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. We want to make sure that the information you're getting it's okay for you to get it. So it's more than just the IRB. We have these other two laws that we also consider in helping you with these class projects and with any IRB. That we're going to make sure that everything's good and that you're above board. So another question as far as risk goes that you want to ask is the data truly de-identified? Now, if you think it is truly de-identified, we still want you to call the Office of Research Compliance. If you don't think it's de-identified, call the Office of Research Compliance, because it's truly amazing how easy it is to identify people nowadays. It's been shown where there were IRBs where people said that the information was de-identified, but someone was able to go back and track the information and find the individual in the United States, where they lived, who they were. It's a little scary to think about, but it helps. Just call us, and if you have any question about that, and we'll be happy to help you with that. So the last question is it easy to underestimate the risk? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, it is. So I don't mean that to say you should never do a class project. I just merely say that you should mitigate the risk. And one of the ways you can mitigate the risk is to call our office, and we'll help you with that. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. So to sum up, the difference between a class project versus research is this. Class projects may answer a research question, they may answer a hypothesis, but their intent is to educate. Class projects are not usually published, though that's not universal, but it's not typically. They're not usually published. They typically do not collect highly personal information. I don't see that very often in class projects. And the fourth thing you should be aware of is if you collect data for a class project, you cannot use it later at a later date for research purposes without coming to the IRB. So a lot of people do a class project and then they're like, they go off into graduate studies and they say, wow, I did this for a class project. Now I'm going to use all this data. Well, there's rules about the secondary data that you're getting, because part of the principles of human subjects research is people need to know what they're getting into. And when they did your class project, you may not have divulged to them that this information they were giving you might be used for research someday. That may or may not be an issue, but the IRB is going to have to decide that. So it isn't, you may be able to use the information as secondary data, but you may not. It all depends. So please, if you're considering using the information you get from a class project for research later on, call me, because we will want you to disclose that when you have your information sheet or your consent form. So you tell people what they're getting into. You might say, this is for a class project, but we may use this data at a later time to do a research project. And that's perfectly fine. As long as people know. People need to know what they're getting into. And that's respect for persons. So what is research compared to this class project? The intent of research is to answer that research question. It's often published. And research, it often collects highly personal information. So as a general rule, this is how you can kind of discern class project from research. It's not a universal, guaranteed slam dunk. This is a class project, that's research. The best thing that you can do when you're thinking about these things, okay, let's take a step back before I answer that question. Should you just complete the IRB form before you call me? Please don't. Why? I don't want you to do anything you don't have to do. And I know we're all busy, so nobody wants to do extra work they have to do. Don't fill out a form. Call us first. And we can give you, if you just explain to me or Krista or someone in my office what you want to do, we can give you a good idea whether we need a protocol form filled out or not. So the bottom line is for class projects to call us and check. We can make a really quick determination. You can send us a fast email. Hey, I'd like to do this in a class project. What do you think? Or give us a call. My extension is 1588 and research compliance is our email address. Because really the bottom line is the answer is not always obvious. It can, the intent might be to educate, but the risk can be very high. The risk can be very low, but the intent is research. And both of those, the IRB will probably want you to fill out a form and they will want to look at. So really, like I said, it depends. It all depends on what you're doing. Now that is my very quick presentation on class projects, whether you need an IRB or not. And here is a slide with myself and Krista and Indrika. And as always, we're here to answer your questions. And this is our email address. So I guess, Ms. Cotton, should we open it up for questions?
Yes, this is the perfect time for questions.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions about IRB?
I have questions. Yeah, this is Yoon Sung Jung and Kark, researcher, but I'm also teaching. But it's mainly is your concern is for the human subject or not, right?
Well, if you're teaching if you're using biohazards and or animals, that's a different.
Yeah,
yes, we are worried about that, but
we're
concerned.
Mainly is for the statistics.
Statistics? No,
Yes.
not unless you're getting information directly from people or about people.
Yeah, so is in the class there is some project for the student. Like there is open data is they were using it, but is one purpose is there is some students submission is had good quality. Is some student outcome is trying to publish. So is that kind of a case? Do I need to submit some IRB approval?
What data was the data collected directly
No, not
about
from the human subject, just the open data already published online.
Oh, okay. If it's already out there in the library, if it's already
something
in a public
is
domain.
so many government website and some like research centers they open some data.
No, you do not need IRB approval for that, because then everybody who wrote a paper that they got information from at the library would be coming to us. And
okay, so then
you don't need to do that. That's a good question.
Can
though.
be
That's a
published
great
without the IRB approval, right?
Right. I'm concerned about humans that you get information from. If it's already in the public domain in the library, on the internet, you're fine. You don't need IRB approval.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure. Next question.
Another question from Vanessa Monroe. The question is, the undergraduate nursing students develop a research proposal. Should they also submit to IRB?
Is that for the capstones or the DNP program?
No, this is their first research course.
Okay.
And they are developing a research proposal throughout the course. At the very end, they have poster day where they submit their research project. As part of that process, we just tell them we submit to IRB. Should we have them at IRB? Would that be a process they need to learn?
So what is the intent to prepare them to be future researchers?
Yes.
Okay. Then, and do they intend to actually do the research, or is it just an intellectual activity?
It's an intellectual activity because it's only a one semester course. It's not like it's 2 semesters.
Then typically the IRB doesn't bring in protocols that are not, that people don't actually intend to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, because then that would kind of make us like grading people's papers in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So no, those don't need to come into the IRB. But if you had, I have heard of some regimens where the first course is setting up the research and the second is doing the research.
Mhm,
In that case, yes, definitely.
mhm. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Donna, you have another question?
Okay.
Is there a risk doing class projects without declaring it as a research project in order to avoid or minimize the level of risk? Would it not be better to treat a class project as a research project and fill in the form?
How risky is it? I say that once again, we go into the, it depends. I'm sorry?
Dr. Cadane, if you're still in the room, can you respond to that? Okay, so go ahead with your answer, Donna.
Oh, you
So,
want me to repeat the question?
Mhm.
Hi, Donna.
hi.
What I mean is, if there is risk conducting a class project, why don't we treat all class projects as a research project instead, and avoid any risk that we might face? Is there any cost declaring class project as research project?
Well, okay, we need to balance. Here's my opinion on the matter, and I'm not the provost or anyone in a high academic capacity. I will say that you want students to learn the concepts of investigative thought. I would think, how to structure a hypothesis, how to answer a question, the methodology, and all of that stuff is important to the learning process, particularly if they're going on to be graduate students. But going through the IRB in the legitimate, we're just not geared to review every class and every project. What we need to do is, our number one task as IRB is to protect the human beings that are subject of the research. So, if you're doing a class exercise to learn how to think like a scientist, you can pick a topic that is not going to be risky and whose the intent of which is never to publish, to put it out there as research. So I would say that would be a little excessive to want every single class project to go through a research compliance board, because it would seem to me that it would be restrictive on their learning experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So we have to treat that as a class project.
But call me if you want to do one. Just call me, and I'll tell you if a compliance approval is needed.
Okay.
And I'll even put it in writing.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We have a few more questions.
Sure.
What are the requirements to get students involved on a research project for which an IRB has already been approved?
Okay. A memo or an email needs to be sent to our office, to that research compliance email on your screen. And you need to identify the protocol number and your name, and basically say, I want to add the following students to my protocol. Give us their names, their phone numbers, and their emails. And there's a page at the back of the protocol form that has it's basically a personnel or co-investigator sheet. It's a signature sheet, and they initial their initials by each line, which says, I've read the Belmont report, which is an important document describing ethics in human research. And it goes through a list of things, and then they sign it, and then they sign off saying they don't have a conflict of interest, a personal or financial. And then we will take care of it from there. So what we'll do is we'll ask them to take some online training, which they can do at their leisure, a module here or there. So basically, you've got the memo asking to add them to the protocol with their information, their contact information. Have them sign the sign-in sheet at the end, and then we will ask for training, and that's all we need.
Okay, Donna, you've got a few more questions. I'm really glad that the Research and Innovation Training Institute was able to offer this particular program, because it seems like there's a lot of interest in knowing when to IRB and when not to IRB. Another question is, do students need to complete the city training for a class project?
No. And let me explain why. If it is truly a class project, if it's truly educational and it's not research, it's considered not research. And we have different categories of risk, right? So our lowest category of risk is it's not research. Examples of that are quality improvement protocols. For example, I'm lecturing now, and you'll get a survey where you can say, Donna did a good job, did a bad job, needs to improve on this or that. That would be for my internal purposes, my quality improvement. Therefore, it's not research. Even though it's a survey and I'm collecting opinions from you, it's not research. If it's educational, generally it's not research. You're not engaging in a systematic investigation to contribute to generalizable knowledge. So if you're just simply, if you're doing it for an educational purpose, you're not going out in the public generalizable. You know, you're not putting it out there as a published document. You're not calling it research. Your intent is education. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. I hope it did.
All right, another question. Does the mentor of undergraduate research assistants need to include the student in the IRB protocol?
If anyone who is handling the raw data, anyone who is consenting subjects, meaning they're in the process of doing the consent forms, yes, they need to be added. So if you bring your graduate students into your protocol and they're doing the consent, say they're operating the SONA room in juvenile justice psychology, if they're in there helping people get started, if they're handling the raw data, yes, absolutely. They need to be added to the protocol and trained. Yes.
Okay. Another question. If we want to compare grades among several classes, do we need to use an IRB approval? We may publish the findings later. No information other than their grades will be collected from the instructors.
How are the grades collected?
That's not clear.
Okay.
Let's assume that they'll get them directly from the instructor.
Okay. If you get them from the instructor, you're probably going through an educational institution to get them, which would mean it would be covered by FERPA. And it doesn't mean you can't get it. It just means that it has to be completely de-identified. There's some restrictions. So you could do it, but we would probably ask for an IRB because we'd want to make sure you were following the FERPA law and that you were getting it truly de-identified and that nobody was being placed at risk. Because a lot of times when you ask that information, you ask for demographics too. And you may ask for a demographic and there's only one student at Prairie View that falls in that demographic, so you know who they are, you know. So we kind of look for that risk. We want to make sure it's minimized. There can be a risk, but if you minimize for it, it's usually, if it's manageable, it's okay. So yeah, that's probably one we'd want to see an IRB on.
Okay, and there's another part to that question.
Okay.
A follow-up question, rather. So what if you simply collect the distribution of grades, like how many A's, how many B's, etc.?
Where does that information come from?
So that's the critical piece, is where you're getting, okay, from the instructor.
I'd say probably an IRB. You'd probably want to, we'd need an IRB for that.
Okay. All right. This is one of those where
that's one I definitely want you to call me. Call me or email me because we can talk about it in more detail. But I'm leaning towards an IRB right there just because of how you're getting the information.
Okay, and Donna, let's go back to the question that we had about faculty mentors. And the person asking the question wants clarification that they were talking about undergraduate students and not graduate students. Does that impact your answer in any way?
About whether they need to be added to the protocol?
Mhm.
No. If they're handling raw data or they're consenting human beings, you know, if they're handling the consent forms, they need to be on the protocol. They need to be trained.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? This is your moment. To IRB or not to IRB? That is the question.
That is the question.
Okay, I have a question. I have a project where we are 4 universities. We work with the students and the grad students. Some of the other universities, they were also with grad students. And I did the IRB, but we thought that that IRB will cover for the 4 universities because it's the same project. But at the end, it happens that they also have to do the IRB because I'm the PI of the 4 universities because we are just one big project. Why is that? I mean, it's always like that. If you have one project and you have different universities or different groups, each of them has to do the IRB. It's not just that one of them has to do.
No. As a matter of fact, the Office of Human Research Protections at NIH, they basically, OHAR, they don't want 4 IRBs looking at the same study. And as a matter of fact, how could you control that, right? Because all 4 of them are going to have different opinions. What usually happens is one of them becomes the IRB of record, and the other 3 agree to allow that institution to do the IRB review. We do it all the time. So if you find yourself in that situation, you come to us and say, you know, what I would do is I'd call the other 3 IRBs and say, okay, do you guys want it? Do you want us to take it? Generally, it's the group that receives the funding.
Yeah, it's us.
Takes
It's
the
us.
IRB. Yeah.
That's what I did, the IRB. But then it happens like 2 months ago, everybody was sure I was the only one that I was going to do that. But suddenly, well, maybe I have to talk to you personally about this group and this situation. Well, thank you.
It helps if IRB offices, like my office, talks to the other office. Because a lot of times when they just get calls from investigators, they're going to take the conservative route and say, we need an IRB. But if my office calls and says, hey, we've got this multi-site project, you know, we're the fiduciary, we're the primary getting the money. We'd like to hold the IRB. Do you have any issues with it? 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, no, just send us the protocol and we'll stamp it that, you know, we'll do an agreement with you or we'll give you a cooperating facilities letter. But it matters who calls them, because if it's me talking to other research compliance people, you'll probably get a better response than if you call them or if your collaborator calls them.
Oh, okay, I will call you then. Thank you.
I'm happy to do it.
Are there any final questions? Okay, Donna, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just the bottom line is contact us, because it's very easy to take something that you in other words, you're trying to teach students how to think critically. And you can do that on a level that's not risky to other human beings. I can help you do that, and then you won't have to fill out any forms or come here. Because I know everybody wants to do their job and not have to all this extra work. If you need the extra work, I can make it easier on you, because we can expedite that. We can speed it up and do it as fast as possible. What I don't want people to do is to move forward with something and someone gets hurt. And then then it's basically everybody's trying to make it right. You know, let's mitigate the risk on the front end and do everything we can to make sure people are able to learn the lessons they need to learn without anyone getting hurt, you know, one way or another. So call us.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you everyone for joining us today for the Research and Innovation Training Institute on IRB class projects. Thank you so much. And we encourage you to follow us on all social media. On all social media, we are PVAMU Research. And we want to invite you to join us again on Wednesday for PVAMU Data Blitz. And you'll have the opportunity to hear from 8 of our innovative researchers right here on our campus. So join us on Wednesday for Data Blitz. We encourage you to do so. And thank you again, Donna, for your presentation today. I think it was welcome information and I think a lot was learned. So join us again for Research and Innovation Training Institute. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.